Well, driving safely while aging gracefully. It's a topic of conversation you need to have with your loved ones as they get older. It's a difficult conversation to have. With us now, Debbie Bernacki of Happier at Home. You always have such great advice about how to approach difficult, sensitive information or topics. And this is one of them because driving is, well, it's a person's independence.
Freedom, yeah. It is. It's one of the first things that when we turn 16, we get a car or our license, and it's our independence.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are elderly and that topic is brought up, all of a sudden they think, well, my independence is going to be taken away. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily something that has to happen. When we begin to age, we lose possibly our ability to see correctly at night. Sometimes our physical abilities, our reaction times, our cognition. So there are things that we need to look at and address and question to see if our ability really is impaired, and then look at those factual things and see what we can do about them, if anything. So some of the things that you should at least look at to begin the conversation is look at the car. I mean, a lot of us
look at the actual car itself first and foremost.
And I think a lot of the adult children have an idea that, well, my parent probably shouldn't be driving. But if you're not sure, look at the car, see if there are dents, see if there's scratches. Were there any more recent tickets given? Were there any recent near misses or crashes? And then also, are there any medical conditions that can possibly impair their driving, such as arthritis, that would impair their ability to turn their head fully, the full range of motion in the neck to be able to safely drive? And even in the knees to be able to reach the gas pedal or the brake pedal. And then I know osteoporosis. I remember my grandmother, she could hardly see over the wheel. So if there's osteoporosis, but those are some of the things that maybe there are answers to being able to help with some of those impairments for driving. So if you answer yes to some of those things, then the family or whoever is close to that person really needs to address it. Because I think a lot of the family says, well, I don't want to address it because then I have to drive that person around all the time. But you have to think, it's your loved one's safety, and it's the safety of everyone on the road also. So what you need to do is focus on that when you're approaching your loved one. Not, we want to take this away from you. It's, we're concerned about your safety. Let's see what we can do about it. So when you approach them that way, then there are things that you could at least look into. There are companies that provide maybe occupational therapy that can give evaluations.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes. So they can evaluate, because there are possibilities of maybe additions on the car, that larger mirrors, cushions that they could put underneath them, adjustments that can happen on the cars themselves.
That's interesting. Okay.
So that is one of the possibilities. AAA has a a refresher course for older adults that you can send them to also. It's not a physician's responsibility to do this. They're in a tight position because they advocate for patients. Of course, they want them to be safe as well. But in New York State, it's not a mandatory thing that they report if they feel they may be unsafe to drive. There's only 3 states in our union that are mandatory report. Physicians are mandatory reporters.
So really on you then.
It really is.
To sort of self-assess or have your loved one assessed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, just because they may be unsafe, it doesn't mean that you have to keep them home, and that's really what we want to avoid. So come up with different alternatives. Have an agency perhaps have someone scheduled to provide transportation twice a week, to stay socially connected, to drive them to do their shopping. And one of those things we talked about, having their car available. So taking their car away is a traumatic thing.
Sure.
So how about keeping their car and letting someone else drive them in their car instead of taking it away?
So they can still be in their car.